Next on WDSU News Channel 6 at 10, a 24-hour exercise hopes to ensure readiness for the next big disaster. Plus, why the governor says he made a mistake during his last session. The news is coming up next. And now to a story happening now. Hundreds will be working through the night to make sure responders can communicate in the worst case scenario. WDSU News Channel 6 reporter Gina Swanson is live at 10 now with how amateur radio operators play a crucial role in emergency preparedness.
Good evening, Chris. CQCQ W5GAD 3 Alpha Field Day, Louisiana. I know that may not mean much to you, but if I was trying to get in touch with somebody in amateur radio land, that's what I'd have to say. Clearly, I'm an amateur at amateur radio, but when it comes to communicating during emergency situations, these guys are anything but.
Whiskey 3 Lima Lima, this is Whiskey 5 Radio United. Whiskey 5 Radio United.
This may not sound like much to you, but the message is loud and clear to amateur radio operators. They communicate using Morse code and other technology.
We're self-contained. Our equipment is maintained by ourselves. We don't really depend on the infrastructure of commercial power.
Not relying on commercial power allows this group to be at the ready when disaster strikes.
When the infrastructure, the communications infrastructure fails, what we try to do is provide a backup.
A backup way of communicating, one that was at the forefront in the days after Hurricane Katrina. Ham radio operators were called on by government agencies to help coordinate relief efforts.
When the National Guard came to New Orleans and they couldn't communicate using their normal modes of communication, we offered our equipment to them, and they used our equipment, and they were able to send the resources to the New Orleans area to set up their own communication systems.
That's why field exercises like this one are so important, to make sure they're dialed in and are able to keep their fingers on the pulse of what's happening.
To show us how prepared we are in the event that we're called on to provide emergency communications.
They have made contact with other operators from across the country, but amateur radio is not all about emergency. Some simply enjoy the camaraderie.
Some folks can't live without their cell phones. You know, they can chat each other up, as they say on the commercials. We use our radios to talk to each other.
Now, these guys have made contact with people from across the country. You can even contact people overseas. There's even a field day exercise at the International Space Station. But for now, we're live in Metairie. I'm Gina Swanson for WDSU News Channel 6.
It's interesting. It's going to be a long night for them, too. This event lasts until 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, and they are inviting the public to come out and see how amateur radios work.
Police tracked him down. And we've managed to track down some amateur radio operators. What are they doing at the Bonnabel Boat Launch to assist in emergency preparedness? I'm LaTanya Norton. That story's coming up. News Channel 6 this morning starts right now.
You're watching the WDSU Weekend Edition of News Channel 6 this morning.
And now for a look at what's happening today. This morning, communications experts from across the country are in the metro area preparing for emergencies. WDSU anchor LaTanya Norton joins us live from the Bonnabel Boat Launch to explain today's exercise and how it'll benefit our area. Good morning. Toslin, good morning to you. And yeah, you're right. All night long, amateur radio operators have been here at the Bonnabel Boat Launch to assist first responders in our area during the worst case scenario. And joining us live this morning, we have Mr. Keith Barnes, who is an amateur radio operator. Thanks for being with us today.
Good morning.
Tell us about Amateur Radio Field Day. That's today, right?
Right. Around the United States and the Canadian provinces, amateur radio operators go out into the field, as it were, set up operations in an emergency situation to try and show that we are ready should everything else fail.
Yeah.
When the floods in the Midwest are going on, there's folks like ourselves who aren't actually exercising. They're actually working to try and help the public servants in the area communicate with each other.
In fact, this is something that's going on all over the country. Amateur radio operators are letting the public know what they have available at their use, just in case it's available.
Right.
Now, you all also assisted during Hurricane Katrina and Rita, right?
Yes, we did. I was actually at work at the sheriff's office at the time, but we had folks at Charity Hospital, University Hospital, Orleans Parish, Orleans Parish Office of Emergency Preparedness, East Jefferson Hospital, Oxner Foundation Hospital, and those folks were out there communicating back and forth when the things started to go down. to try and help provide the backup when things weren't working.
Definitely. So we turn to our amateur radio operators. At last case scenario, you all were there for us, and you're here to let us know that you're still there for us.
Exactly.
There's a big event going on later on this afternoon. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. But first, I'm going to throw it back to Toslin, who's live in our studio. Toslin, just to give you an idea of what's going on here, these amateur radio operators been here all through the night testing their equipment, just making sure that if the worst thing happens, worst case scenario, our area will be ready. Our first responders will be able to communicate. We're going to talk a lot more about that throughout the morning. On your side, live in Metairie, LaTanya Norton, WDSU News Channel 6. Back to you.
Well, we're certainly grateful for their efforts. Thanks so much. Well, also in Mandela.
And amateur radio operators are here at the Bonnabel Boat Launch to help during a worst-case scenario in our city. I'm LaTanya Norton. That story's coming your way.
Well, the time now is... And now for a look at what's happening today. This morning, communications experts from across the country are in the metro area preparing for emergencies. WDSU anchor LaTanya Norton joins us live from the Bonnabel Boat Launch to explain today's exercise and how it will benefit our area. Good morning.
Toslin, good morning to you. And today is Amateur Radio Field Day. You know what they say, when all else fails, amateur radio. No question about it. We're about 29 days into hurricane season, and all of our first responders are preparing for the worst case scenario. That brings us to our guest this morning, Keith Barnes, who is an amateur radio operator. What does that mean when all else fails, amateur radio?
The communication systems that our law enforcement, our first responders use are all dependent upon infrastructure, something to help them work.
That's right. You all don't depend on commercial power or any of the latest technologies. You all depend on solar power, generators, all of these emergency sources.
When the need arises and we don't have anything else to use but that, we do employ those facilities to put us up. We're operating behind us here with a generator, and we do have a solar panel over here to operate with batteries. So we can use natural resources as well to try and continue to make the communications happen that could fail.
You said that you all have been out here since Friday, rocking and rolling. What does that mean?
Just, it's a busy time. When we're called out to help, it's just get it done. Yeah. We need to talk to somebody now. Somebody's life depends on this. And we take that phase of our hobby very, very seriously, because part of our licenses that the FCC gives us is dependent upon the fact that we are here to provide a service in times of emergency, either nationally, locally, internationally. The earthquake in China, there are people there, amateur radio operators, who are communicating, trying to get aid in. We know that when earthquakes happen, when 911 happened, when all of those things happened around the world, amateur radio stepped in to provide the communications, because the infrastructure, the things that support the regular communication, fail, because when the disasters happen, things stop working.
You were there during Hurricanes Katrina and Rita. You've been there for us. And if anyone is interested in learning how amateur radio works, they can come on out here to the Bonnabel Boat Launch. They have until 1 o'clock this afternoon to come on out here to meet one-on-one with some of these amateur radio operators and to take a look firsthand at this technology. On your side, live in Metairie, LaTanya Norton, WDSU News Channel 6. Toslin?
Certainly an important service. Thank you. Also today...